hit the subscribe button.
Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll talk about high earners and high debt. One of the interesting things about life is that someone who drives a nice car and may have a fancy job and may have a big house, they may be living paycheck to paycheck. And this is not surprising. Once you break down their finances, you begin to see that a lot of high earners have high amount of debt. And as such, they may show you something of a life that they're not actually living. Let's think about it for a second. A lot of high earners spend years in school, right? That means that they have a lot of student loans. That means that they're working high pressure jobs. That means that they're working long hours. What comes with working long hours? Broken homes, divorces, not a good family life. So to advance in their careers, a lot of them have to work very long hours. And so you also see what comes with that is a lot of suicides and a lot of illicit drug use. Basically a very unhappy life, even though you may be making a lot of money because of your situation. So why do high earners tend to live paycheck to paycheck? Again, not all, but there's a lot of high earners who live paycheck to paycheck. Think about it. That nice car that you may see someone driving, it comes with a nice car payment and a nice insurance payment. That nice house that you see someone live in, to heat, cool, insure, landscape, and just general upkeep, that is very expensive. What about the family? Private schools to keep up appearances, very expensive. If the wife doesn't work or the significant other does not work, very expensive, right? And so you have to maintain this social status, or you don't have to maintain this social status, but a lot of high earners tend to try to maintain this high status to maintain their social circles. So let's just give an example. Think about the life of a doctor or a lawyer. Let's take a look through their progression from college to grad school. For university, the average university, let's say, costs about $10,000 per year for a public university. Over 4 years, that's about $40,000 right there. So about $40,000, if there's no scholarship, that's $40,000 in debt. When you take into account the interest on that student loan, that grows over time. For private school, if our doctor or lawyer goes to private school, that's about $36,000 to $40,000 per year. Now, when you multiply that out by 4 years to graduate, that's taking you over $150,000, and that is just for undergrad if you go to a private school. Again, with interest, let's say a few percentage point, that is accruing over the years, your debt is growing over time. But then you have the competition, you get into a professional school that you want. If you're looking at law school, let's look at our lawyer. The average law school cost that's private is about $50,000 or more per year. Again, coming out of law school, that's almost a $200,000 debt situation. Add that to your undergrad debt, and you're talking about over $250,000, and for some, over $500,000, right? And when you look at public law schools are not that much cheaper, because if you're doing out of state, that's about $40,000 or more. Again, that's $120,000 or more over 3 years of law school. The average in-state public law school, that's about $20,000 to $30,000 a year. So that will give you a significant drop to about $80,000 or so in loans. But again, when you add that to your undergrad debt, if you went to private school for undergrad, that's about $150,000 in debt plus your law school debt, or about $40,000 in debt plus your law school debt. Either way, you're likely to come out of law school with over $100,000 in debt, and if things do not go according to plan, you could come out of law school with $500,000 in debt. That is crazy. Now, let's look at a doctor scenario. Now, let's look at med school for a doctor. So the average private med school, that's about $52,000 a year, maybe more by this point, maybe up to $60,000 per year, and it's growing each year. Over 4 years, that's over $220,000. $220,000 for 4 years of med school. If you look at public med schools, that's about $35,000 to $40,000. Right? That's taking you out to over $130,000 in debt for med school. Again, just like a lawyer, you add that together with your undergrad situation, and you could easily be coming out of med school with over $500,000 in debt. Again, very crazy. From the lawyer's perspective, you may get into big law where you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. But again, with regard to the legal landscape, you have kind of a bimodal curve, right? You have a number of individuals, select few, who may go to big law and get those hundreds of thousands of dollars per year salary. But then you have another bump where a lot of lawyers make less than $50,000 a year. So you could come out with this $500,000 situation in debt and be making between $70,000 and $200,000 a year. Good luck paying off your loans. For doctors, when you come out of med school, you're still going to do your residency or do some fellowship. You're going to be paid peanuts, essentially. Now, if you're coming out with $500,000 in loan, you have an issue. This is going to take you some time to pay off. So the math basically says that if you're a high income individual, lawyer, let's say a doctor, you will likely come out of school with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. If you do get caught up in the life of living above your means, of keeping up with the Joneses, of buying the big house, the nice car, because that's what you think a lawyer or doctor should have, or going on the multiple vacations per year, having the multiple kids, having the trophy wife, because you may think that is what a doctor or lawyer should have, your loans or your debt will expand. You may not pay off your loans as fast as you may want to, and so it'll continue to grow because 5% or 7% accruing interest per year on a $500,000 loan, that's a lot of money over time. Plus, if you're in further debt because you're borrowing to additional things, you'll get yourself in a lot of trouble. So, for high earners starting their careers, there's typically a high debt load. As high earners navigate their way through their careers, in addition to student loans, there's the purchases of homes, there's getting married, there's having a family, there's lifestyle inflation, there's a consumerism culture, and you will see this again and again. Someone graduates from law school or med school, they'll buy a home, an expensive home in a very nice community, they'll get married, and it won't be a small wedding at that. It'll be a huge wedding because they're a lawyer or a doctor. They'll get the next best car, they'll have the kids, there'll be private school, and they will project this image of being very wealthy. But what they have is a high income, but they also have a high outflow of funds, which basically leaves them in a position of living paycheck to paycheck. So whether you're a high income earner or not, it is very important for you to have control over your financial activities, your expenses, and your income, such that you can move towards financial independence. High income does not mean being financially independent. It matters what you do with your money, not necessarily how much money you make. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel.